You're listening to Empowered to Lead, the Therapist Practice. I'm Lisa Catello, therapist, business coach, and your go-to for all things leadership and sustainable practice growth. This is your space for real talk, smart strategies, and grounded support to help you lead with confidence, work with intention, and build a business that actually works for you. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Empowered to Lead podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. And one of the things that's important to me as I'm doing this podcast is to share real lived experiences. And so sometimes that's my experience. And then other times I get to have people amazing like Barbara Brown join me and just kind of share what life has been like as a group practice owner, some of the learnings, some of the ways that you show up as a leader. Barbara, I was trying to remember when we first met, but it feels like every time I see you, it's just like, oh, just that connection.
But
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in some ways it feels like I've known you so much longer, and just some of those interactions that we've had feels like a good fit. And I just really admire the way that you approach being a group practice owner, how you think about your team and your business, and also just all of the different ways that you do business and the offerings and, things that you explore to see how you can make this business work for you. So before we get started in some of the questions, just give me a picture of who you are, where your group practice is, and a little bit about that to start with.
Lisa, I just want to say thank you, one, for showing up for me on this whole crazy ride as a group practice owner. I could not have done it without you. And I'm located in Toronto, and I've been a psychotherapist for 37 years. So a really, really long time. I had zero dreams of owning a group practice. They didn't exist for most of my career. This is a new beast in terms of mental health services in Canada, and it came very accidentally to me, but it's been a remarkable, remarkable ride. And I feel like the scope of what I've been able to do as a group practice owner has really satisfied me in my career. Yeah.
There's been bumps along the road, but it sounds like overall that feels like it's been a positive choice to take this route.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are moments where I'm like, I'd like to be in sole proprietorship again. But me, I used to have holidays where I did nothing. Computer and I was done. And there are that kind of luxuries in that independent practice that as a business owner, I really don't have right now. That's been my biggest learning curve, because the clinical piece I feel so comfortable and confident in, and I love working with students and I love working with the practitioners, but how you shape a business, what does that mean? How do you stay in line with your value systems when you're a for-profit corporation? These are questions I would never have even contemplated. I wouldn't have spent my time thinking about it until I got here.
Yeah. Has that been stretching in a difficult or like a negative way, or is that overall, do you feel like that's been okay? I'm learning more about myself. I'm growing in some areas.
I would say a little bit of both, honestly. Okay. The business hat has not come easily or naturally to me, and I've been this is, I think, one of my biggest learnings about how to lean into other people to guide me on this, being one of those central people, my employment lawyer, an HR consultant, my bookkeeper, and just the things that create the structure.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work, full stop. And two, it's areas of expertise I don't have, and I'm not about to go out and get. I'm learning the basics, so I understand when I look at a spreadsheet, when I look at a profit and loss document, or I have a conversation with the employment lawyer and I read the contract, I kind of know what it means enough that I keep an eye on it. But the execution of those kinds of things, I really have learned how essential it is to build your team and build your team with people you like, you trust, that you feel reliable. Like I've had many bumps. Like I first started on my own and I tried to incorporate and I put in my, was trying to do it on the cheap and I messed it up 3 times. I had to go back.
Oh, yikes.
To my articles. And it was like, one cost me way more money. That was remarkably frustrating. So that was a good wake-up call. I was like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. So there's a owning of the not knowing in a way that I think is useful. And then I started in and I got myself an accountant and they were terrible, like chaotic. I have accounting 101. I did a little class to something in my head and I found errors in their accounting and it's like,
oh my goodness.
I was just,
here you go and you trust something or your business to someone, like you just said, like finding these people on my team that do this well and then they screw it up.
Yeah, exactly. And charge me a lot of money to do it. And then charge me to fix our own mistakes. And I was like, cross a line for me from a value standpoint. I quickly went looking for someone else. And it was actually, I've ended up with amazing person now because I was in your mastermind group where we met for that whole year on a weekly basis. And Brissa gave me a reference and it's changed my life as a business owner. I'm like, we're steady. Things are completed on time. We have a quarterly review and all the things that I feel nervous about, he doesn't. And he can like, here's how it works. Here's the information. So there's sort of some critical pieces in my team that I would never do without.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things, like in talking about empowered leader, right? The title of this and how you step into being a group practice owner, small business owner, and recognizing like I am a leader. I have to put on a CEO hat, but that doesn't mean I have to do it all alone. So even like you're a solo group practice owner, but there's people in place in order to support you and hold you up on there. One of the things I've talked about in one of the other podcast episodes was around the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And when I first listened to it, I'm like, oh, shit, like really? I have to have 21 different qualities in order to be a good leader? But in the book, he's talking about like, okay, where you excel and where you're already strong, how do you find people who fill in the gaps of where you're not doing so great or where you're not really, like you said, not really willing to learn or grow because that, that's not a skill. So that could be a business partner. But for most of us, that's, the lawyer, the HR consultant, the accountant, the bookkeeper, whatever that looks like to keep things afloat and help you vision and grow and step into your role as a leader. Yeah. And also, I think to know when it's okay to say this isn't working for me too. Hey, I need to change.
I think I didn't move quick enough on that piece because the amount of work in the startup period was just intense. The number of things you have to think about, the number of things you're tracking, the kind of policies you have to develop on the fly. And, your mind is occupied with so much. And the idea of taking apart something you've put in place and have to go find something else is a little bit daunting in the middle of that. And I wish I'd been a bit more courageous and called it earlier and been like, no, I, save myself 6 months of grief instead of a year and say, just this doesn't work for me. Without any blame, just this doesn't work for me. Because I think for me, that's a place where I'm increasingly feeling sturdy. Whether it's in a conversation with an associate, whether it's in a conversation with a student, whether it's in a conversation with somebody on my admin, team, I think I have, through this growth process, somehow found a way to give myself permission to own that and to be like, interesting idea, that won't work for me. Thank you for bringing it to us. Or, there's a piece of here that's really in line with what we're doing, but the structure right now is not going to work. So I'll take the idea and riff with it and see if we can come up with something else.
Okay.
But there's that, I enjoy the sensation as a group practice owner in a sense of saying, this is mine.
Man.
This is not something I don't know if many people talk about this, but because I build this, and I think I am really good at building a very collaborative environment for my team. I have really great retention, and I think we have this deeply respectful relationships. And I love that. That's how I want to work, and that's how I want to be with my team.
Was there a time when you felt like there was a switch from this is my business? Like sometimes it's almost like, okay, I have to put the CEO hat on, or like this business needs to serve me kind of idea?
It was probably almost 2 years in for me.
Okay.
To really on and settle into that. In the beginning, it was just my work. Like I was like, I got a lot of things I got to do to make this happen. And so I was a busy bunny doing the work, but I wasn't thinking about, I am shaping this company. Now, of course, I was implicitly shaping it based on my values, my preferences, my design interests, but I didn't do that consciously. The early years really unfolded just responsive to need, honestly. I mean, that's how it started. One of my students asked to stay, and I was like, I had a okay, waited to come by and say, hey, can I join you? And I was like, I don't know. I don't let me figure it out. So it felt like I felt pulled into it as opposed to I chose and walked in out of my own directive. And so I think that as the beginning meant I had to go through a personal process to come to own it and then be like, this business represents who I am and what I want to be in the world. And so that's precious, that is worth tending and protecting and being clear and holding some of the decision-making responsibilities in a way that affirms what I want it to be. It's not random anymore.
That's so cool to hear that transition. Hey, like this is something I'm creating and it needs to work for me. There's intentionality. I know where we're going, not just, oh, you want to join? Sure. Let's figure that out kind of thing. Eh?
Yeah. And what piece about that you said, like, know where you're going. In my hardest moments, when I have had many times where I was truly ready to pack it in. And I had to come back to that question. I often hear your voice actually in my head. What are you doing this for? Why are you here? Come home to that. And I had to get very clear on what my markers were for it is valuable. And I mean, valuable, worthwhile on an emotional level, on a work to income level, in terms of my lifestyle and how I want to, I'm getting older. I'm only, I'm on the age of 60, right? So it's, it seems a little crazy to believe, but at this stage of life, you have a discernment about what is and what does that future look as I think about aging, as a therapist, as a group practice owner. And I think for me, there have been these transition periods, sort of phases of awareness and deepening. And I think I am kind of on the cusp of the new one, but each time I go towards a new cusp is usually like, maybe I should get out now. Get out or keep it the same. But nothing stays the same, right? People leave.
Yes.
The world asks for different things and I don't do so. So the company's trying to change. Right, the practice is
okay. I'm excited to hear how all that takes shape. That could be a whole other conversation. One of the questions that I ask on this podcast is, how would you describe yourself as a leader? It sounds like that has probably taken shape over time, but how do you describe yourself now, today?
One of my core values around this is about availability. I want to be easily accessible to my team, and that does have an impact on my life, but I like that sense of connection. Most of our work happens virtually, and we do have a clinic in person in Toronto, and we have team gatherings, so we get to be in each other's space live, but so much of the conversation happens online, and that sense of thread between us, I want them to know I'm there for them anytime they need. And I don't like the sensation of kind of people dangling out there and me not knowing quite what's happening, because I'm like, I should maybe know. So I just make a real big commitment to being very available. And then I think I really believe that recognition and reward is an important part of the feeding the goodwill, They're here and they're working hard, and people who are investing, I want them to know that I deeply, deeply appreciate them. And they'll come in lots of different ways. That can come financially, that can come through presence and words, and remembering who they are and what they like and making it present to them. It can look like staying connected, like just reaching out, well, hey, how are you doing? Knowing a bit about their personal lives and, things that are going to sometimes make it harder. Somebody's parent is ill or they're pregnant, and how is that all going? Or just kind of remembering them at that level as well.
Yeah. So not just I'm the boss and follow me, this is my business and this is how it works, but also I'm connected, I know who you are, and there's that personal component is important to you as you're leading Redbird.
Yeah, 100%. And that means creating opportunities that fit them. So we're about to launch our South Asian services team, and that is simply because, we're going to see a theme here, because some folks who showed up on my team, and I was like, you have this expertise, why don't we make something happen? And this kind of holding them up to be able to, like with Anshul, to come into a clinical lead position. And I have another therapist who's been with me since student, and supporting her to come up onto the clinical supervisory team because she's at that level now. And where do you want to go? Where do folks on my team, where do they want to go? And can that happen here? Right?
And you're creating leaders too then, hey? You're not just, I'm it. How do we foster that both for, I imagine, the buy-in and the retention and longevity with your team is reflected in that, let's see, how can I help you flourish here?
Yeah. And I have some associates who are very happy seeing their clients and writing their notes and going home. They're like, I've got a full practice and I love what I do, and I will absolutely come out and play ping pong at the next team gathering, And that's that they are not needing anything more than that at this point. So don't build, keep the weight of other responsibilities off them, and let them do what they do best. And then there's some people who have a longing to keep opening their capacity. And so hearing and knowing what that is and seeing if that can be contained within our practice. And sometimes it's meant they leave. Some of those really, if somebody's really ambitious, they're not, for me, the best group practice associate long-term, because they're going to want to build their own. And I want them to. I'm like, okay, come for the time and let me support you. But I've learned to kind of see who are the people who want to stay and be a part of this team, who are the people who want to be here, discover what they're capable of, do the learning they need to do, and then go. And how do I practice that letting go,
Yeah.
Because that's changed how I pick who comes into my team.
It really becomes a process of who is my ideal therapist, as much as when you're in private practice, you're thinking, who's my ideal client? Who do I really love to work with? As a group practice owner, it's who do I love to work with as my team member? And, you learn by what doesn't work, as well as, oh man, that was an excellent fit. Let's find more of that kind of personality. And yeah, just knowing your culture. And again, where are we wanting to take this business? And so these kind of people fit in there well.
Exactly. And for me, like Redbird is committed to accessibility and inclusion, right? On many levels. Would never have been able to build a South Asian services team.
Yes.
Right? That's not going to come from me. Nor was it an inherent directive. But when the synergy happened on the team, the spark showed up. I'm like, let's make that happen, because that is really in line with what we're about here, having language accessibility, having cultural competency, and we work with a lot of queers, and I'm queer and I'm good with that. I'm like, okay, I can hold that myself, but there's pieces I can't hold. And so how do I make space to let others hold that? And yeah, I love that. I love things happen in that way that celebrates what they have to offer. So
yeah. One more question before we wrap up, because you and I could sit and talk forever. One thing that I have learned through supporting group practice owners is that it doesn't feel like there's a one-size-fits-all approach. I think that it's important to have a foundation and to have clear systems, have a vision like we've talked about, but everybody is so different in how they tweak that and make it work for them. What would you say is one thing that you think is important for someone to show up as an effective leader?
That is such a good question. I do think that clarity about why you're doing this has to be forefront in your mind, because you need a rudder. And I think really a deep reflective capacity, self-reflection capacity around power dynamics, I think is actually important. We do a lot of that thinking as therapists. And if you're going to step into the GPO role, then I think you got to take that with you. And not in a way that says, I'm not allowed to have power. Of course I'm allowed to have power. I have power and responsibility. What do I use it? How do I use it? How do I engage in a way that exemplifies and honors exact same core values we would bring into a therapeutic environment? So for me, I think those two pieces are really critical.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's not even much more to say about that. You wrapped that up really well. I had another question here, and I said that was the last one, but one quick one. If someone is listening to this podcast and they are feeling overwhelmed or unsure about their role as a CEO, what do you think is one small step they could take to move in the right direction?
Call you. 100%.
I did not tell her to say that.
Lisa, she'll know. Wow. So I'm going to like to make the pitch for you, but honestly, too, I have you in my camp, like on speed dial when I hit those moments, reduces my anxiety profoundly. Finding a community of other group practice owners, 100%. changes the nature of this work, just like having a peer supervision group when you're a therapist. And you're like, we cannot do this alone. We need our peers. And group practice is a very, very specific kind of experience. So honestly, just talking about it with other therapists really never touches the things I need to be able to talk about. And I need people who get it straight up.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was the last question, and also didn't pay you for that. Thank you, Barbara, for showing up. We are going to include a link to your website, Redbird. We didn't even talk about Kutana and some of the services that you provide there. So we will provide a link if people are interested in what you do outside of group practice too. And for those listening, I hope that you take something away from Barbara's experience and to know that you are not alone in this. A lot of the experiences that you may be having are shared by other group practice owners, and that's one of the reasons this podcast exists. So I hope you'll tune in next week. And thank you again, Barbara, for being our guest.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Empowered to Lead, the therapist practice. I hope you're walking away with something that you can put into action, because leadership isn't about doing more, it's about leading with purpose. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to see you inside the Group Practice Connection, my monthly membership where Canadian therapists like you get coaching, community, and the tools to build a business that actually supports your life. You can check it out at grouppracticenetwork.ca. The link's in the show notes. And hey, don't forget to hit follow so you don't miss what's coming next. We're building something great here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it.